Live. Woo! We're back. Okay, you're the first person to join us. Welcome. Hey guys, welcome back. Hope everybody's doing well. Thank you for the heart already. Hey everybody, I'm sort of doing this on TikTok and YouTube at the same time today. We are back. I'm going to take a minute, as always, just to let some folks come into the room since we're waiting. The sun is setting out my window, so I'll be changing my lighting as the moment goes on. Hey, everybody. Hey, Tommy. Thanks, guys. I appreciate all the. As always, I can read your TikTok comments, but I can't read your names because it's written so small. So I apologize for that. Youngstown. Oh, yeah. I'm feeling better, guys. Pretty much better. Actually, everybody say where you're from. I always like to people introduce themselves. I had some sort of minor nose surgery on Friday to sort of open up the airwaves, and surprisingly, it knocked me out. I've been exhausted all weekend and taking long naps and dizzy and all of that, but there's so much going on in Ukraine. I thought, you know what? I can stomach it today. So I'm not Odessa. Get out of here. Wow. Welcome, Odessa. Man, hang in there. I know they're just starting to go after you guys. Not totally yet. Newfoundland, nice. England, Canada, Cincinnati, Germany. You guys will excuse me if I don't call out the Americans as much as I do the the non-Americans. I'm used to talking to the Americans a little more often. We're going to start in a second, guys. Usually we like to give it a second just for folks to come in to the room, but we're almost there. I will do my introductions. As I said, we're broadcasting this on a number of places, but the two that I'm tracking are TikTok and YouTube. So I'm going to try to be following your comments there. It's not easy. Bahamas, nice. It is very, we found just doing YouTube the other day, this is getting so popular that there were so many comments. It was very hard to keep up with them. So I apologize for that. We're going to try to keep, I'll be trying to do, I know my hair totally needs to be cut, guys. It's getting there. It was going to get cut, and then I had that little nose surgery thing, so I had to put it off. I want it cut off. But as I was saying, we're doing YouTube and TikTok. I've got moderators on each. We've actually got a lot more moderators on YouTube than TikTok. Thank you for that, Maddie. I actually, without them knowing it, a lot of the YouTube folks that are regulars, I made you moderators anyway, you might have noticed. And on TikTok, we're going to need some more. If folks want to contact me, I would love you to contact me, the TikTok folks. Give me your phone number, if you don't mind, because I'd like to probably call and check things out because we had a bad moderator before who was someone just out to ban people left and right. But if I could have that and maybe some of your social information, social media, whatever, I can check you out and see if you're real, if you're willing to help out. Overall, I would tell the mods, and then we'll dive right in. If you see someone who's clearly a troll, block them. Don't give them 5 minutes out, just block them. Get them gone. That way it's less work for you, less work for everybody else. Last thing is, and I will jump right in now, guys. Thank you for joining us. We've got a good number. Excellent. We've got a great number on TikTok. So glad to see you guys. YouTube still building up, but that's always the case. But we are strong but mighty on YouTube. For the YouTube folks, TikTok, you already know. You've got those neat little GIFs you can do, which I like, including, as you all know, I like my Harry Potter hat, my sorting hat. On TikTok, you can do super stickers, which are the cool little YouTube, the cool little TikTok type cool things that pop up, or you could do super chats. The super chats, there we go. That's my hat I like. Thank you. The super chats are a way of you highlighting a question for me. Previously, I promised I was going to answer every super chat question. Last time we were on, we went for an hour and a half with super chat questions. So I'm no longer going to promise every question, but I'm going to try. Because, as I said, it's kind of hard. It's hard to do all of them. But if you do a question on Super Chat, that'll be the first one that I will. Thank you, guys. That'll be the first one that I go to. Let's dive right in, guys. So, top story. I'm going to start with two nice top stories because usually we're starting with the bad news from Ukraine, and it's kind of scary and awful and all of that. Here are two good ones. I'm hoping you all got to see the other day that wonderful young girl in the bunker in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital of Amelia, and she was singing Frozen. I am not up on my Disney, whether she was singing a song from Frozen or singing the song Frozen. I don't know which, but it was beautiful. And she was singing in the bunker, and everybody like slowly started, everybody was just talking as she starts singing, and she's 7 years old. And all of a sudden, everyone starts turning quietly, watching this girl. And the story was that she had said she wanted to sing. Her dream in life is to sing in front of a large crowd. And the woman there with her, thank you. The woman there with her said, there's my hat, said, why don't you sing for everybody here? Well, she got out with her family. They're in Poland, and they held a benefit concert in Poland. The Poles did. And she was on stage singing for everybody. And she sang the Ukrainian national anthem. And it's the most lovely thing you've ever seen. And the wildest part for me was, forget the fact that this girl just escaped a war zone. She's 7 years old, and she's on this stage in front of a theater that looks like it's thousands of people. They've all got the lights on from their phone looking like candles, and she is singing beautifully. Stephanie, thank you so much for that. She's singing beautifully. It was absolutely lovely. So anyway, just wanted to share that. The second thing is, since I hadn't updated you guys in the last several days because I had that little surgery and was in no condition to go live, I initially raised some money for my friend Vlad, who did the live with me a couple weeks ago from Ukraine. And his family was in real trouble. They're internally displaced in Ukraine, not making any money. They're having to pay $100 a night to the hotel. The hotels are not free in the refugee areas in Ukraine, and had run out of money. He did. I asked him, I said, why did you take money out of the bank before the war? You knew it was coming. And he said, I did. I gave it away to my family and friends. So he gave money away to his family and friends. Anyway, I asked you guys to help out. He needed $2,500. We said any more than that, he was going to distribute to other families. Well, you guys have chipped in $12,000. He has already helped several families. He did a video with his daughter thanking everybody. It's in my TikTok feed. But he also is going to do another video with another family tomorrow. But he's just looking for other families in the area where he's in, because the town he's in is it's like Ozgurud, I think it's pronounced, but it's a town regularly of 100,000 people that now has 300,000 people because of the refugees. So anyway, very exciting. You guys have thank you. You guys have continued to be chipping in, and I just wanted you to know it worked. And thank you so much. And Vlad, like I said, I've been checking with him every day. He is distributing the money, and it's been, for me, I like it at least. I mean, obviously, give to the groups. By the way, I do have donation links on my TikTok. You can go to my profile, and you'll see the Beacons link. And through there, you can see ways of donating to the Ukrainian army and Ukrainian relief. For the YouTube people, let me get my banner up. There we go. That's the link for the YouTube people. You'll have to kind of just copy it. Now, let's get to the real news. NATO is meeting on Thursday. We know that President Biden is leaving. He's talking today to NATO leaders. I believe he flies out tomorrow. And Thursday, they're all meeting. I'm not quite sure what the point of this meeting is, to be honest. They're meeting with the NATO leaders in Brussels, and then Biden's going to go to Poland, which is kind of the front of the war, so to speak. When I say I'm not sure what it's about, what I mean is, what more can NATO do that it's not doing that it is willing to do? The two big things hanging out there, I would say three maybe. One, cutting off all oil imports to Europe and oil and gas from Russia. But it's hugely difficult because Europe gets so much of their oil and gas from Russia. The EU might be 30%. I know Germany's even worse. Germany's like 40%. Now that the sun's going down, I'm going to turn my light down a little. Germany's almost 40% of their energy from Russia, so that it gets very difficult for them to cut back without harming their country economically. So that's an issue. Oops. Like I said, I'm going to adjust my light as I talk to you guys. All right. Let's see how that goes. So that's the first problem. The other issue becomes getting Ukraine the MiG jets that it wants. Remember, the fighter jets from Poland that NATO's been refusing. And more generally, my suspicion about what this meeting is really about is NATO deciding, what do we do? What do we do if Russia goes chemical, goes biological, or goes nuclear? Right? I was just reading an article today about the nuclear weapons. You may know there are nuclear weapons that are smaller nuclear weapons. They're called tactical nuclear weapons. And sorry for my lips. I always dry out when I talk. The tactical nuclear weapons are smaller nukes that you would use in the battlefield. It sounds crazy, but it exists. They're literally smaller nuclear weapons that are meant for using in the battlefield rather than the big ones to blow up an entire city, you know? And and I know about the trolls on TikTok, guys. If folks want to moderate, contact me, send me a message, send me your obviously your name, your phone number, because I want to call to make sure you're real, and any of your social media info. You know, LinkedIn, some of your other presence online, so I can see that you're real. And that way we can get more of the mods, because I know TikTok, YouTube has been fine, but TikTok's been a real problem. So that's sort of my question is, I'm not sure what the NATO meeting is really about, other than sort of, you know, to show solidarity. But I suspect part of it is the what do we do if situation. And that's the thing that I'm curious about. You know, what does NATO do if Putin uses chemical weapons, if he uses biological weapons, if he uses nuclear weapons? Because I'm not sure NATO's clear about that. And I've talked about this before. I won't repeat it in depth now, but if we are so worried about engaging Russia militarily that we think it will lead to nuclear war, then why would we engage them militarily if they use chemical weapons? Why would we engage if they use biological weapons? Why would we engage if they use a small nuclear weapon? Because we don't want a big nuclear war with Russia. I'm concerned that the posture the West has put out there is a posture that says we will use sanctions, but we will never engage militarily. That's my concern about the posture. Next story, where things stand, pretty much a stalemate, except a very dangerous stalemate. Russia is not advancing in their goals. The Ukrainians are not beating the Russians. Both sides are beating each other. The good news is that the Russians are not advancing. Good point, Sarah. Sarah says you can't message on TikTok if you're not friends. You know what? I'll give you my Gmail then, because, you know, Gmail filters garbage out anyway. My Gmail address is simply my last name at gmail.com. So you've got my last name on YouTube and TikTok at gmail.com. Send me an email if you want to moderate. And as I said, give me your phone number, give me some of your social links. And the only reason I asked for that is because one of our little pro-Russian trolls slipped through and was a moderator on TikTok. And I had to basically withdraw. Thanks for the hat. I had to withdraw all the moderators, save one or two that I know of. So thank you, Sarah. That's a good point. I was wondering about that. So Putin's new strategy, because there's a stalemate, is to go for the land bridge in the south. We've talked about this before. You've probably heard about it. You know how in 2014, the Russians had invaded and stolen some of Ukraine's land back then, right? They went and they stole Crimea, which is, if you look at the map of Ukraine, you'll see it's on the Black Sea, and you'll see this peninsula hanging down. That's Crimea. Well, the Russians stole that in 2014 and made it, you know, part of Russia, that no one recognizes. They also are going to take these two provinces in the east of Ukraine that are these, you know, quote unquote breakaway provinces that Russia has been financing. I don't want to say resistance. That's too nice of a word. They've been financing basically terrorists to try to take those territories and make them into Russia. Well, what Putin needs now is he's got those territories in the east. He's got Crimea here, and in between them is Ukraine. He is trying to get a land bridge through here that he can make Russia. So then all of this becomes Russia. Now, what town pops in the middle of that land bridge? Mariupol. You've probably heard a lot, if you've been following this, about the town of Mariupol and all the carnage going on there. That's because that is one of the key areas. Thank you for those lights. You know I love those. That is one of the key areas that Putin needs to get if he's going to create this land bridge from the stolen area of Crimea to the stolen area of eastern Ukraine to Russia itself. Flooding north of Kyiv. This was a really interesting update I saw today that I loved. Thank you for that, by the way. I'm thanking the TikTok folks for sending the funky things. So if you see me do that, I apologize. Not I apologize, but now you know why I'm saying it. Really interesting story today. So CNN reports, in talking to one of the colonels, they said, you know, there's reportedly flooding north of Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, due to a dam and problems with the dam. Do you think this is intentional? And the colonel said, the former American colonel said, oh, I'm sure it's intentional. Basically, what he thinks happened is the Ukrainians have intentionally, you know, turned off the dam or blocked it up, or however one does this, but caused the dam to back up north of Kyiv, the capital. So it has flooded the entire area north. Well, that's area where the Russian troops are. Thank you for the computer. That's area where the Russian troops are. So they basically flooded the land where they are. Ukraine is known to be incredibly muddy territory. I mean, incredibly muddy. The colonel was saying one of the muddiest places on earth. So that and it's springtime now, so they no longer have sort of that frost in the ice. They flooded the land. I mean, I laugh. It's obviously this is deadly serious stuff, but you've got to admire their ingenuity. They flooded the land up there, so the Russian troops are just stuck and can't go anywhere. So that I put that in the good update category. The strange update category. One of the Russian papers, was it Komsomolskaya Pravda? I can never pronounce it right. One of the big pro-Putin papers publishes an article today. And for a brief period of time, there's a paragraph in the article that everybody found and went, oh my God, like, what is this? Well, the paragraph in the article says that nearly 10,000 Russian troops have died in Ukraine and 16,000 have been wounded. Now, Russia has never admitted anything of the sort. I think the highest number they admitted was like 450 troops being killed. Well, almost as soon as that story goes up, the paragraph that says this comes down. People are now trying to figure out if some idiot published the story, like putting in the real data, because in Russia, one does not publish real data about war dead. 2, whether some hero at the paper did it, and they basically snuck the real data in there. Or 3, whether the paper was just hacked and it was a fake number thrown in there. Now, I will say, saying 10,000 Russian war dead is pretty consistent with what the Americans have been saying. Our intelligence, the most recent one from several days ago, mind you, said that they believed that 7,000 Russian troops have died, and that was a very, very conservative number. So if 7,000, thank you for that, if 7,000 is super conservative, then 10,000 would not be that unbelievable. So, but very interesting that the data popped out there. Another quick thing to tell you about, there's this guy on Twitter. If you're on Twitter at all and you like following this stuff, his name is Trent Tolenko, and his Twitter handle is just that, Trent, T-R-E-N-T, Tolenko, T-E-L-E-N-K-O. He is this fascinating guy who did this series of tweets on Twitter that made him kind of famous a week ago. He used to work for the U.S. military, and one of his jobs was taking care of trucks and their wheels. And the wheels on vehicles. And he had done this whole analysis. Thank you for those roses, by the way. I do see all the things you guys are sending. It's just, I can't always stop and thank you, so I appreciate it. So what he did an analysis on the wheels and how messed up the Russian tires were on all of their vehicles. They hadn't changed them. They bought cheap Chinese ones. They were falling apart. Well, he did an update on all of that now and said that the Russian transportation is so bad, their vehicles are now so stranded with no supplies, that by his analysis, between the end of April, I'm reading his tweet now, between the end of April and mid-May of 2022, so end of April, mid-May coming up, the Ukrainian army will be able to counterattack everywhere because there will be nowhere more than 20 miles or 30 kilometers inside Ukraine where Russian troops won't be out of food and low on ammunition. In other words, once you get 20 miles inside of Ukraine, the Russian troops are out of food, out of ammunition, and probably out of fuel too. And they'll be, thanks for that, they'll be there for the picking for the Ukrainians. Very interesting. Another quick story today. President Biden warned about possible cyber attacks by the Russians. He was talking to big companies, but one of the things I've told you guys before is make sure you've updated all of your equipment, your phones, your computers, your tablets, your iPads. Make sure you've installed the latest update. That's probably the first safest thing you can do, just to make sure, because I would not be surprised if the Russians are going to be sending viruses around and things like that to take over people's computers. So be careful with that. A couple more stories. Okay, so the bad news. So Mariupol. I mentioned earlier Mariupol because it's that key strategic city in the south that Putin needs to get if he wants to create that land bridge from Russia all the way to Crimea. Lots of bad stuff happening. Putin had cut that poor city off a while ago. Sorry, I'm like reading the comments as I talk to you, so it throws me a second. I'm going to stop reading the comments. I saw bye-bye chat. I'm guessing I think a troll just got kicked off of YouTube, so an angel gets its wings. So Mariupol has been a really bad case because what the Russians are doing is basically having a siege. They're closing off these Ukrainian towns. They're cutting off the food. They're cutting off the water. They're cutting off the electricity. They're cutting off the phones. It's just getting into spring now, but these places are still freezing, and they've got nothing. Okay? Well, Mariupol what was the latest here? Oh, yeah. So yesterday, I've got a whole series of things about this poor town. Yesterday, Putin announces that everyone in the town needs to give up and give up by 5 a.m., which would have been 5 a.m. this morning, or anyone left in the town, military or civilian, and there's hundreds of thousands of civilians in that town, military or civilian, will be considered enemy combatants. And when the Russians get their hands on them, they will be subject to a military tribunal. Well, some of the reporters who have written on the history of military tribunals explained that what this means is Russia, like on the spot, the troops go, here's a trial, you're guilty. They line you up and they shoot you. They have announced that there's an entire city of Ukrainians that they are just going to line up and shoot since they haven't left town. That is simply outrageous, but this is the kind of garbage the Russians are doing. Additionally, in Mariupol, the Russian Defense Ministry said today that it had, listen to this, it had evacuated more than 62,000 civilians from Mariupol to Russia. Evacuated. They forcibly removed 62,000 people, including thousands of children, Ukrainians, from this town and shipped them off to Russia. This kind of thing hasn't happened since Stalin. I mean, again, these aren't just war crimes. This is why I keep calling this genocide, at least genocide with a small g, because this is an attempt to wipe out a town. Let me see. Richard, I'll answer a quick question because Richard just posted a question. And since we've got a few more topics to talk here, but not too many, and we can jump into the questions. If Putin orders a cyber attack against the U.S., does that pull us into the war? That's the big question. So Richard's question was, if Putin attacks us with a cyber attack, what does that mean? Is that an attack on us? Like, is it an attack on NATO? What does it do? And the U.S. has already had to contemplate that. I know. I don't know what their answer is. Part of it's going to depend on what he does. My suspicion, I could almost guarantee you that whatever Putin does to us, we will do back to them. If they go after our banking sector, we'll take down their banking sector. Or we may even one-up it. We may go after something even a little bigger. It is incredibly dangerous if the Russians launch a cyber attack on us, because I think that is an act of war. But I think Biden's going to try to not minimize it, but Biden's going to try to keep it from turning into something bigger. So I think it would at least initially be the same attack back at them. So the people around Putin say, you know what, let's not let this get out of hand. Now, a little bit more on Mariupol. It's just terrible. There are also reports that the Russians fired on buses full of kids fleeing the city today. 4 kids were hospitalized, 1 critical. Now, these are reports from the local community. This is what the Russians do. They did it in Syria, and they've also did it in Ukraine. Excuse me, my congestion is catching up with me from my surgery. In Syria, what they used to do is they would set up these humanitarian corridors where, we won't bomb you for a day and you can just escape through this corridor. And then when all the civilians would go into the corridor, they'd bomb them and blow them up. They did the same thing to troops in Ukraine, the same thing. They, back a couple years ago, I did a video on it. A couple years ago, they told the troops in a town in the east, the Russians did that, we're giving you amnesty. You can leave town. Several hundred troops got into the convoy and the Russians killed them all. They were in the free white flags. The Russians said, just wave your white flag. It'll be a truce. They waved their white flags, killed every single one of them. So it is not unusual to have them fire on buses of kids. We already know they blew up maternity hospitals and more. The other thing they blew, and this is all Mariupol, this is the same town. The Russians also bombed an art school housing 400 people. Just horrible, just horrible. Another atrocity. I promise I only have 3 more stories and then we're done. Then we can get to the questions, but they're all kind of sad stories. Another atrocity in the town of Svatovo, I'm going to say, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Ukraine. A Russian tank drove up to an old people's home, right, to a retirement home. The tank got right in front of the retirement home and started shooting at the retirement home, point blank. 56 senior citizens were killed. 15 were taken hostage. Where? To Russia, to the Russian-controlled territories or to Russia itself. In Kherson, there's video today in the town of Kherson, which has been kind of going back and forth, Russia, Ukraine, in terms of who's in control. There were peaceful protesters there, and the Russians opened fire. I saw the video. I put the video of the peaceful protesters on TikTok, but I couldn't show the video of the aftermath of the firing because there's a guy lying there with his leg. It was bad. There was no way I could put that publicly. And finally, some other sad news. This will be the last story for tonight. That's pretty good. I did a pretty good summary because now we can talk for the next half hour plus. Boris Romanchenko died in Ukraine from Russian bombing. He was a 96-year-old Ukrainian survivor of the Holodomor, which, again, I hope I pronounced correctly, but was the Russian genocide of Ukrainians in 1933 under Stalin. And he also survived the Nazi concentration camps in the 1940s. I'm pretty sure he was at Buchenwald, I think, because there was a photo of him on TV when he went to visit, and I think they said it was Buchenwald. He was killed in the Russian bombing of Kharkiv, and his family now doesn't even know what to do because they can't bury his body because of all the bombing going on, so they're not even sure what to do with him. But this poor man who survived, the genocide of the 1930s with Stalin, who survived the Holocaust, concentration camps, was killed by Putin. Just awful. Absolutely awful. He survived 4 camps? Oh, my God. Okay, one of the folks on YouTube is saying that the man survived 4 camps. My God. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, guys. That's it for my summary. Now we do the Q&A part. We will at least do it for the next half hour. It's, as I said, because I'm still recovering from that surgery, I'm still a bit wonky. I mean, not wonky in the smart way, wonky in the woo. So I will at least promise I'll do this till 8 o'clock, but I'm not promising I can go much beyond 8. Usually we go for a good 2 hours. We do this Q&A and then we get into a happy hour kind of thing where we all talk and stuff. So hold on, I'll get my glasses on so I can see the questions. As always, if you do super chat questions, which somebody just did, Sean just did, I will get to those first. Otherwise, I'll just jump around randomly. So Sean asks, and I will read the questions for the folks on YouTube, on TikTok, and I will jump to TikTok next. Do you think if Putin gets this land bridge, he'll cut his losses or double down harder on other areas of the country? That's interesting. So what Sean is asking about is what I was talking about, Mariupol, which is the town in the south where Putin wants to get this land bridge from Crimea in the south, going up the southern coast of Ukraine on the Black Sea, and then to the east with Russia, right? What people do not think so far that Putin is going to lay off. What they think is Putin's going to get the land bridge, he's going to keep killing civilians, and then he's going to use that as leverage to get Ukraine to accept the land bridge. Basically, that the deal, the peace treaty would be Ukraine signing away that land in the south, signing away Crimea forever. No longer contesting it, no longer contesting the land bridge, Mariupol, etc., no longer contesting the eastern provinces that Russia is now claiming are independent. And I don't see Ukraine doing that. I really don't. But that's so Putin will not say, let's just call it quits. He's going to try to get them to do that and maybe more. And I think Zelensky is going to tell him to go Russian boat himself. Another quick question from DD. Oh, okay. She's just saying great work. On Twitter or TikTok to send info to mod, so I guess kind of a question. What you can do is, as I said, folks, you can always email me. My email address is my last name @gmail.com. So you can send it there, DC. And I will now go and check out a question on TikTok. Hang on a sec with my glasses here. Do you think the U.S. will end up fighting? Jessica asks. All right, Jessica, I have said from the beginning that I have been worried that so just making sure. Okay, the questions I've answered. Good. I've been worried from the beginning. I don't even say worried. I'm not sure what word to use. I've been convinced from the beginning that we were going to get dragged into this war. That's what's going to happen. That Putin was going to go so far, so whether it's chemical, biological, nuclear, he was going. Whether it's the civilian deaths, he was going to go so far. There's going to be some atrocity, even though these have already been atrocities. Some atrocity that goes so far that Americans are going to say, "That's it. We've got to go in." And I think the situation is that it's going to have to be the American people pushing Biden because, honestly, we had 20 years of Afghanistan, and I'm trying to give shorter answers because I realized part of the problem last time was I was giving such in-depth answers to the questions that the questions backed up, so I apologize for that. But I'll say briefly, because of our experience in Afghanistan and Iraq, Americans don't want another war. Because when we pulled out of of Afghanistan. This time it looked so bad. Americans are really not thrilled about getting involved in more wars. But I think if the civilian casualties are so bad, if Putin does something so outrageous, the American people are going to demand that we get involved. So I still think we won't have a choice in the end, because I think there's only so much genocide that you can handle until you've got to step in. Will Russia attack Poland? Well, that's an interesting question. Okay, will Russia attack Poland was the question. I think it comes down to this, and this is what gets very confusing. Oops, okay, I will highlight this one so I don't forget. I think this gets very confusing, is what does Putin really want us to do? First of all, Putin keeps warning about, nuclear war and World War III, and he's scared. He's trying to scare us into not invading military. Remember, he said, if you send weapons, I'm going to consider that an attack on us, and I'm going to attack the weapons. So he keeps saying things, trying to convince us not to get involved. But at the same time, we've been getting the impression that Putin is trying to sucker punch us into getting involved. Like he would like nothing better than a war with NATO, and particularly a war with the United States, because having a war with America would rally all the Russians to his cause and all of this, right? So it kind of depends what you think Putin's plan is. Does he want to get the West involved in the war? Or is he trying to keep us out of the war because he's doing so badly already? And let's face it, he's doing so badly against the Ukrainians. I mean, he has enough weapons to destroy Ukraine, don't get me wrong, but he's not really winning. He wanted, within 3 days, he wanted to grab Kyiv and own it. It's been 3 weeks, and he's nowhere closer to occupying Kyiv, the capital. It all comes down to what he wants. I think if he wants to get NATO involved, then he's absolutely, I think, going to go after Poland, yes. The question becomes whether he thinks we're weak and we're so afraid of getting involved that he attacks Poland, like, for example, attacks a military convoy coming for Ukraine, but while it's still in Poland. And he attacks it to say, I told you to stay out. And then the question becomes, does NATO say that's it? Or does NATO say, we don't want to get involved? I'm not sure which one it is. Now, I missed a question. Thank you, Be Kind, for pointing it out. I answered that one. I didn't miss that one. If Putin orders a cyber attack, does that pull us into the war? I answered that. I did answer that. Let me find, since I answered a couple on TikTok, let me see here. Well, Andre, you should be watching more Western media, Andre. What can I tell you? I've heard that that's interesting. China, I'll say this from Caitlin. I don't know that this is the case, Caitlin, but it raises an interesting question. How's the nose? Thank you. My nose is doing much better. Thank you. Caitlin asks, and I'll read this for you guys on TikTok. Caitlin asks, I heard that after meeting with President Biden, China released 2 different statements, one in Chinese and one in English, and the Chinese version blamed the U.S. for what is happening. Is this true? I don't know about that. What I do know is that China has clearly been trying to play both sides of this, right? They've been putting out these statements that were very positive towards Ukraine, but at the same time, telling, first Russia asked for help, military and humanitarian help. They wanted food and they wanted weapons. And China said, well, we've never heard anything about this, which sounds like China saying no. The next day we hear that China's open to it and we're going, oh my God. And then Biden gets really worried about it. Then Biden talks to Xi on a Zoom call, and the response from China is that we've really got to make this war go away. It shouldn't escalate, which again sounds like China being helpful. I don't think China knows what it wants. I think China originally was on Russia's side. China did not think the war was going to go long. China believed Putin that it was going to take, 2 days or 3 days to take Kyiv, the capital, and it would be over. And China thought it'll be done, the war will be over, and we can get on our business. And what happened was it dragged on for 3 weeks, and Putin showed that he was more than happy to do crimes against humanity, war crimes, killing women and children. And China kind of got the icky, and China went, China did not want to be associated with that, I think, is what happened. So we will see what position China stakes out in the end. But I think China's trying to walk a very fine path between supporting the Russians and supporting the Ukrainians. Okay, Caitlin. And then there was another one I saw pop up here. Excuse me, here. Input on Putin set to hold nuclear evacuation drill and moving his family to Siberia. So Franny says Putin is planning to hold a nuclear evacuation drill and moving his family to Siberia. I did not hear that. I would not be surprised if he were going to hold a drill. Look, Putin Putin's trying to freak us out. I think from the beginning, Putin talking about World War III and nuclear, remember how he's talked about nuclear war like 5 or 6 times? It sounded to me like the classic, they always sort of tell you in politics too, like, don't threaten, just do. Like, if you threaten, it's the old, do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do to you? Like, people who say that usually don't have much power. The people who have the power know they have the power. They know they can win. And they just kind of, right? I'm doing this on both cameras. They just kind of look at you stone cold because they know they can win. Putin making this, I'm going to use my nuclear weapons 5, 6 times in a row. It kind of sounds like boy who cried wolf. Obviously, we've got to be careful about it and take it seriously, but I would not be surprised as the next thing he does is hold a nuclear evacuation drill. And if he really wants to scare people in the West, move his family to Siberia too. And the idea there would be he's moving them to safety in case there's war with NATO. He is trying to freak people out at home to rally them, and he's trying to freak people out in the West, not even just the West, in the rest of the world. He wants people to be scared, which is why he's bringing up nuclear war all the time. And frankly, it's why our own leaders have brought up World War III all the time, which I think is a real big mistake of our own leaders. They should stop talking about how engaging Russia is going to be nuclear World War III. Kim, I saw that video. I wasn't going to mention it because I'm trying to keep politics out of this. We love the fact that Republicans and Democrats have mostly come together on this issue. Only the very fringes of both parties have been a problem. It has been amazing how Dems and Republicans have come together. So I am being assiduously careful to not make this about politics. So there we got that. Let me see. I don't think we had any more questions queued up on the YouTube side. TikTok. I'm not sure what you mean. I saw somebody say, what is it? What is the bigger picture this war is going? What is your opinion? I'm not sure what that means. I mean, I guess I would say bigger picture. I'm a little concerned about the bigger picture in terms of what precedent does this war set. I think it is setting a precedent where NATO has made clear and the West has made clear that we don't want to challenge Russia, that we'll challenge them through intermediaries, but we're afraid to challenge them in terms of militarily, and that in essence, there's nothing they can do, outside of NATO territories that we would get involved militarily. And I think that's dangerous because I think you use a World War II example and you say, if Putin were to do something akin to what happened in World War II, right, I'm not going to use the H name, but akin to what happened in World War II, are you telling me that we wouldn't get involved if we knew that was happening in Ukraine? If we knew he was systematically trying to wipe out millions of people, literally, we wouldn't get involved? And I feel like that's the message we gave him because we said, no, it'll be World War III if we get involved. I worry that how this war ends up is going to send a message for what happens in the future internationally in general. Clearly, there's a good message that has come out of this war. I've got 2 questions backed up. I will get to them in a sec. A good message that came out of this war is you will be hit with the mother of all sanctions. I mean, it's unheard of the kind of sanctions we've put against Russia in this war. That's good, and that's a great message. But in terms of militarily, will we stop you? That message is a little weak. Now, Jessica asks, and I'll get my glasses just to get it right. If we, NATO and the U.S., don't stop Putin, what's to say he won't stop at Ukraine? At what point will he be stopped? That was pretty much what I was just talking about. I was prescient to your question. That's one of the concerns is if you look at why Putin is doing this, and if you think Putin is doing this, if you think Putin's lying, and thank you, by the way, I do see all the roses and the little stuff on TikTok, so thank you for those. If you think Putin's lying, and you think Putin isn't going into Ukraine, thank you. I want my sorting hat back. Remember, guys, I want my Harry Potter hat. If you think Putin is going in there, not because Nazis are running Ukraine, and not because, Ukraine was going to join NATO when NATO has been, thank you, there you go. When NATO has been saying for 14 years that it wasn't going to let Ukraine in, that it wasn't ready. Thank you again. Then what you come to is take Putin at his other word, which is he wants to maybe not reconstitute the Soviet Union, but reconstitute, Magna Russia, the greater Russia and the greater Russian territories of which Ukraine is part of, and the Baltic states. We know they've had eyes on the Baltic states forever, right? So that becomes the question of what Putin does next. And what others have said is, he went through Georgia. Well, I guess before that too, it wasn't just but for Putin, at least he went to Georgia, then he went to Crimea, then he went to Ukraine again. Then he went to Syria. Then he went to Ukraine again. And each time he's kind of gotten away with it. And each time he bites a little bit more off the apple. So yeah, I would be worried that that this is the classic case of appeasement, in that his lesson will be, I can get away with it if the economic sanctions leave him in a position where he doesn't feel that the economic sanctions took too much of a bite. All right, 2 questions here. I think this is the first I do from Jessica. Oh, no, maybe this is the second one I've got here. I'm sorry. Oh, no, Jessica was the one. I already had that. And then there's one below from Chloe Reitherman. How safe do you think the Zaparisia Oblast is in Ukraine? That's the Zaparisia. I'm assuming you mean the one with the nuclear, or maybe not. Is that the one you mean with the nuclear plant, with the Zaparisia plant? Now in the future, does the East Carpathian Range offer any protection? Oh my God. Okay, that's way over my head, Chloe. I have no idea. I'm sorry. That's way over my head. I'm not sure what you're asking about. I mean, we know the Zaparisia plant the Russians took over, and that's bad news because they've been clearly wanting to hit the nuclear plants, but I'm just not sure. I feel bad. If anybody in the comments knows what Chloe in YouTube is asking about, please join in, because I definitely would like to answer a question if you can. And as I said, folks, if you need to, I see more questions here. If you need to send me a comment, if you can't do it directly through one of these, my email is my last name @gmail.com. So let's go for Doc Remington. Yesterday, there was actually chatter from UA. UA. Okay, not sure which abbreviation you're using for UA. That oligarchs are scheming against Putin already. Do you think someone was trying to freak him out? I saw that. Yeah, there's the interesting question. Right. We've heard about Putin cracking down on the some of the intelligence guys, on some of the military guys, and blaming them for everything being a disaster with the war. Right. I saw some report like you were talking about there were recriminations going on too between the Ministry of Defense and the intelligence branches, blaming each other. The deputy head of the National Guard in Russia got removed from his post because he was accused of leaking documents to NATO or to NATO or to Ukraine about what their war plans are. So there's a lot of, finger pointing, can I trust you kind of things going on. And I did see something yesterday. I don't remember if it was the oligarchs or something else, but something about just that, like that it was looking a little more perilous for Putin, and that somebody might try to take him out. The question becomes whether that's real or whether that's disinformation that we or somebody else is putting out to try to scare Putin and make him even more jittery so that somehow he screws up. I mean, my guess would be probably a combination. I would suspect that people in the military are not thrilled with Putin right now. I mean, he's not only destroyed their military in a horrible war plan, but he's also shown their military to not be any that big of a deal. Right? The Russian military is now a paper tiger. They can't be thrilled about that. If I were the Russian military leaders, I'd be ticked. So the question becomes with Putin, though, is do you have the ability to overthrow him? Or does he have such dictatorial control over the country that you can't? Next question. And I am going to ruin this name. I'm going to guess Yuan, but I'm not sure. The president of Ukraine said if the negotiations with Russia it'll lead to World War III. Okay, I know what you mean. Yeah, the president of Ukraine said if the negotiations with Russia don't proceed or don't do well, it will lead to World War III. What do you think he means by that? I think, there's what he means and why he's saying it. I think what he means is that things are going to get so bad I think he's using my argument. Things are going to get so bad in Ukraine that the West is going to have to get involved, and it's going to be a world war. If the West doesn't try to nip things in the bud now, it's going to become a much larger war. I think he's also hinting that Putin will be undeterred, as people have said in the previous comments, that who does he go after next, right? That if we don't stop Putin now, we don't show him that he needs to stop, that he can't get away with this, he's going to go after Poland next. He's going to go after the Baltic countries next, right? He's going to go after other countries. So that's what he's talking about. Zelensky is. What I think Zelensky's doing in terms of motivation is he's trying to turn Putin's own talking point against him. Remember, Putin is the one who has been saying, "Oh, nuclear war, World War III, if NATO gets involved militarily," and Putin's been trying to psych us out. Zelensky's trying to psych us out in reverse and say, if you keep staying out of this war, if you keep being so afraid of military intervention that you won't even give me planes, then you're going to have a bigger war on your hands, whether you like it or not. So Zelensky's playing some of the same psychology Putin does, and it just depends on, which one people believe. Oops, another question here. I think Let me see. You have a couple more. Lori Keene. Do you think it would be a good, safe idea for Zelensky to meet Putin face-to-face? That's interesting. I mean, Zelensky has been calling for face-to-face meetings with Putin, which I think is smart and wise. Is it smart of him to do so? You know, the concern obviously would be that Putin would find some way of poisoning Zelensky. I mean, it's what he does. It's what he's done with all the political opponents. You know, they've killed journalists. I mean, that would be my fear, would be meeting. But I think, well, let's put it this way. Putin poisons Zelensky, and you might just have World War III. You know, I think because of the persona and the hero nature of what Zelensky has built, not just in Ukraine, but internationally, right? We love this guy. I think if Putin kills him, Putin's in trouble. I mean, again, I don't know whether NATO would get involved, but I think you would see such an uproar internationally. So I think it's smart of Zelensky to offer to meet Putin because it's what a leader should do in wartime. You should offer to negotiate with the enemy. And also, it kind of makes Putin look a little chicken if Putin refuses to agree. It makes Zelensky look like the bigger man, which is also interesting from a negotiating perspective and also just a public relations perspective. Tommy Courtwright asks, what if a non-NATO, say Japanese or another U.S. ally country, were to help Ukraine? Well, it's interesting. I mean, by help, I'm assuming you're saying we're to help militarily, as in somehow get involved militarily against Russia. Well, the issue becomes, the issue for the U.S. would still become, do we have a treaty with that country to defend them, right? If I can twist your question around on you, Tommy, what gets interesting is, what if a NATO ally like Poland gets so upset at what Putin is doing that they decide they're just going to go in anyway and they're going to help? They're going to help. They're going to provide the planes. They're going to help set up a no-fly zone or whatever it is that they're going to do. They're going to bomb some of the Russian transports or the railway lines that the Russians are using to ship the civilians. You know, they're taking the civilian hostages to Russia. If Poland says, I don't care, we're going in, we're not going in as NATO, we're going in as Poland. The problem is they're still a NATO ally. So if Russia declares war on them or Russia attacks them, they're a NATO ally under attack. And in principle, we're supposed to defend them. So to me, that's the more interesting question. It's possible a third country gets involved and it still doesn't drag us in the same way that Belarus has been involved as an ally of Russia, but it still hasn't dragged us in. So that's my take on that. A couple more questions here. What would be the punishment for war crimes? How would they take place? I'm pretty sure the punishment for war crimes would be life in prison. My guess would be the international court. The U.S. has the death penalty. Most civilized countries on earth do not. So I'm sure The Hague doesn't have the death penalty. I would be surprised. The issue with war crimes becomes proving them isn't really the problem. The problem is, and I was just watching something about this the other day to sort of get an update on it, you've got to get jurisdiction over the accused war criminal, him or herself, to do the trial. And if you can't get them, what I saw at least on TV was, if you can't get the war criminal in your possession, you can't do the trial. And there's no way Putin's going to turn himself over. Putin would have to have a coup or something, and the people who take over turn him over, turn the generals over. Now, it would mean that Putin and the generals and others would never be able to leave Russia again because they'd be subject to arrest if they landed in any country that abided by the International Criminal Court jurisdiction. But that becomes the issue. And, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, actually. And I asked, and I said, we keep talking about Putin committed war crimes in Syria. Now he's committing war crimes in Ukraine. Why didn't we hold him accountable after Syria? And the answer was nuclear weapons. He was let off because he's got nukes. So you've still got that problem of the world saying, well, and by the way, if Putin decides as part of the treaty settlement for a peace treaty, of course, is no war crimes investigation. Now, I don't know whether that can even be agreed by treaty, because I would think the international court can't just be silenced because somebody reaches a treaty and says, hey, don't investigate his war crimes. But that's my fear. My fear is he's too big to fail, we say, for companies. He's too big to prosecute is my fear, which is just outrageous. But that's, anyway. Let me see here. Kate Rodriguez. Not a question. Oh, okay. Thanks for keeping us informed. Thanks, Kate. That's an easy one. I like that. Thanks. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Don't go well. That's what I assumed you. I'm gonna call you Yoan. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but that's what I assumed it was. Yes, it doesn't go well. Don't worry. I figured out what your question was. Don't worry. Just making sure I'm missing anybody else here on the super chats. Yes, I'm single, Leslie. Thanks. What is your opinion on Russians starting a coup or civil war to get Putin? Well, that's what we talked about earlier. I mean, to some degree, Russia needs its own revolution. Russia needs its own people rising up. I mean, I feel really bad about Russia. I really had hoped when the wall came down, when the wall came down, when Eastern Europe was freed, when the Soviet Union dissolved, I really thought that Russia had a chance of joining the West. And what I mean is culturally becoming a part of Europe again, or not even again, but culturally becoming a part of Europe, moving towards democracy. And, there were a few fleeting years, although even those years were a kleptocracy and the mafia grew. And then it just, with Putin, they're back to the old ways. And now they're really bad. I mean, this is as bad as we're back to the 1980s, during the Reagan years, or back to the Stalin years at this point. Things are so bad with Russia. I did talk about this earlier as far as whether some of the security services or the military or somebody might stand up. I think a lot of them probably would love to get rid of Putin. I think the problem is he's got such a control over the government, and he's apparently so paranoid that he's very careful to make sure nobody can take him out. And by the way, and I'll move on to the next question. One of the things that people thought was going on, the experts, that huge long table he kept having when he was meeting with Macron, the president of France, when he meets with his generals, and he's at that crazy 40-foot long Putin, that 40-foot long table. 40 feet is like 60. We said, what is 40 feet? 15 meters, something like that. Some of the experts were saying they don't think it's COVID. They think it's because Putin is so paranoid, he doesn't want to get near anyone lest they try to kill him, which I thought was very interesting. I'm going to say Kashan. I'm hoping that's pronouncing it correctly. Jones, we're in the White House Zoom call with the other TikToker. I was not. And I was offended that I wasn't. No, I mean, what do you do? I was not. He was asking, or Kashan, I'm assuming a guy. I shouldn't assume, but I'm thinking a guy was asking if I was involved in the Zoom call the White House had with the other TikTokers. I wasn't. I mean, I'd have liked to have been just because it's a nice feather in your hat. My suspicion is that updates from the White House aren't going to probably. It's not like the White House is going to tell TikTokers their secret plans. NATO's secret invasion plans. So my guess is it probably wouldn't have been anything too new for you guys. It's always nice, So I mean, I'd love to be invited just because it's the honor of being invited to a call with the White House is always nice. But no, I did not get invited. But what do you do? Next question. Do you think you'll do questions for more than an hour? Maybe. Let's see, guys. It depends how I feel. I mean, what happened was. As I said, I haven't done these lives. Well, we hadn't done the lives on TikTok for a week because there was a little glitch. I was banned, but now I'm back. So life is well on TikTok. I still can't schedule them on TikTok. So that's why you guys weren't able to click the button to remind you or whatever it is on TikTok. But I'm back at least. So we're doing YouTube and TikTok simultaneously. Then I had some surgery on my nose to kind of open it up more to help me breathe. It was a very minor one, but it's still, you can probably hear that I'm still nasal, and it's still making me very fatigued. I was surprised, minor nose surgery, how much it can wipe you out. So that's why I haven't done lives since Friday, because I was just so wiped out. And today I'm still really tired, but I'm doing okay. But the last live I did before the surgery, I did questions for an hour and a half because there were so many questions. So I'm hoping not to do that again. I will go a bit longer anyway. We're at 5 to the hour right now. I will go a bit longer anyway. But I'm trying to sort of limit myself, because what I don't want to have happen is that I'm doing 2 hours of questions a day with you guys, and I get so burned out that it's just burned out of doing this. I want to sort of be able to keep my energy up, that we can do this every day. I can do a good update and we get the questions done. And then all day long, I'm doing the videos on TikTok as well. So let's see. I'll go a little late tonight because I'm hanging in there, but I don't see myself doing too long tonight. I don't want to tire myself out too much. What else we got? Let me jump back to TikTok again, you guys. Yeah, I was curious about that too. Somebody said the Russian stock market was supposed to open this week, but hadn't heard anything about it. I hadn't either. I had heard it was supposed to open. I don't know if anybody if anybody heard about that with the, sorry, I'm just reading about what happened with the Russian stock market. I don't know. Just listening to see a podcast of the BBC, rescuing people. Yeah, B12 shots, exactly. Tara. Yeah, Tara's being funny. Sorry, let me see. Yeah, do follow me. I keep forgetting that. I always say this as a lesson sort of for all of the creators you guys like. Always make sure you follow the creators. Always make sure if you're in something that allows you to like what they're doing, hit the like button, forward it to your friends, make a comment, but at the very least, follow them and hit the like button, because that tells, and buy them baseball hats on TikTok, that tells the algorithm, which is basically like the computer program on YouTube, on TikTok, on Twitter, whatever it is, that what they wrote is interesting. Now, it could be you don't like it. It could be you like it, right? But it makes you want to engage, and that makes YouTube, TikTok, Twitter put that person's information out there more. So the more you engage with their content, even just by liking it, the more that program will send that content out further. So I always make sure with the creators that I like, at the very least, I like their content always. If I see some video I like on TikTok, I just like it. It's an easy thing to do, and you're helping them get their stuff out there. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate it. Daniel, I know I'm usually I have my interestingly complicated Daniel question of the day. So thank you. I've actually, one of the nice things has been on YouTube, we've got a smaller audience, although I do love my little, like that origami thing on TikTok, but having a smaller audience has been nice on YouTube because we've actually been able to kind of get to know people a little bit, which is nice. But yes, when I do my B12 shots. But sorry, let me look for another TikTok question. Oops, sorry, stop that. That's okay. Somebody in Brazil asked, what's your opinion on the Western media not pro-Russia? Basically, they're saying the person is saying they're not pro-Russia, but they want my opinion on the Western media. I have been watching, CNN has been my go-to. New York Times, Washington Post, BBC, Wall Street Journal has been excellent. Because I'm in America, I don't get to watch the foreign news. So BBC I've been reading online. I follow about 60 or so experts on Twitter who are my favorite hat. Thank you. 60 or so experts on Twitter who are military experts, Russian foreign policy experts. Some of them are Ukrainian activists like Maxim. I was going to say, is it Estevi? I never know how to pronounce Maxim's name. He's very good. And I will say CNN has done a ridiculously good job. Amazing job covering this. I think they've got the best coverage of anybody. They not only have got people all over Ukraine, all over Europe, but all over Ukraine. They also, what did they do? Oh, the generals and the colonels that CNN has. Oh my God. They roped in some of the top former generals we've got here in the States as their paid contributors who are doing hourly. They're having like 2 or 3 of these generals or colonels come in every hour and give an analysis of what's going on with the military plans. It's been astounding. No, I think the Western media has done a great job. I will say they are pro-Ukraine, so to speak, but I think this is one of those times where, how are you not? And I think the media has kind of learned its lessons over the years that there are some things you've got to take a side on. And what we are witnessing isn't a he said, she said. It's not, well, Russia has a point of view and Ukraine has a point of view. It's pretty clear what's going on here. And no, I have been loving CNN, and the papers, as I said, that I've referred to have been doing a great job. So no, I've been very impressed, actually. Very impressed. Let me see here. Oh, Deutsche Welle. That's interesting. Deutsche Welle News is on YouTube. That's interesting. I mean, I could watch Deutsche Welle. Honestly, CNN's amazing. I've been really enjoying just watching CNN. So I haven't had a need to watch other news because also, like I said, I am getting it from the web, from Twitter. Twitter especially, because of the people I follow. The news is filtering by all day long from all different sources, which is great because it also is giving me videos that I'm ending up putting on you guys. I put it on TikTok. I've been sharing the videos on Twitter, etc. My Twitter handle, by the way, if anybody cares, is Aravosis, same last name. You're seeing a trend here. To make it easy, it's at Aravosis, which is my TikTok handle. My YouTube handle, a little more complicated, is John Aravosis DC, if people want to check me out on YouTube. What else we got there? Oh, that's right. Just thank you. Again, I will filter through the questions. And again, if you want to do a super chat question, I will get to it first, but otherwise I will just randomly go through questions. Well, CNN in Portugal, Dharma's complaining about CNN in Portugal. The problem abroad is you get CNN International, which isn't the same thing. And whenever we Americans travel, like I'll put on CNN just to find, see what's going on with the news. It's not the same thing. It drives me a little crazy. It feels like it's weather and all sorts of stuff. It's just a weird mixture of stuff. CNN in the States, I love. But yeah, not as big of a fan there. Let's see what else we got here. Keeping my software updated. Exactly. You've got to keep your software updated, everybody. Yep, no, that's a fair point too. As always said, everything in Ukraine is so, Carrie raises a point, she's repeating Danielle, I guess. Everything in Ukraine is so important, but we can't forget about other atrocities happening. No, and that's very true. And this is sort of the nature of not just international affairs, but I would say domestic affairs in the US, probably your country as well. It is hard to get people to focus on every story. And I don't know why. It's just hard. Not every missing person do they care about. Not every genocide do they care about, right? It's just a very weird and for some reason, Ukraine really got people caring. Whereas Syria, the atrocities got shown on American TV, the chemical weapons attacks definitely that freaked people out here, but it didn't freak them out. Ukraine feels closer to home. And I think part of it is that the Ukrainians do feel like Europeans to us, and at least, obviously, all Americans aren't European origins. I am. My family's Greek. For me, certainly being Greek, the Ukraine thing feels much closer to home than Syria. Doesn't mean I'm not going to use that as a justification to say we shouldn't pay attention to Syria. I'm just saying I think there's a subconscious thing going on with a lot of Americans where when it feels closer to home, they care more, and when it becomes other parts of the region, they care less. It's a bias, clearly a bias. Not saying it's good, of course. Let me scroll down. I do have some more questions here. Actually, I shouldn't have asked for more questions. Actually, thank you, Kali, just for giving the super sticker. I should be asking for more questions because you guys are going to keep me here. Nicholas Peterson asks, John, do you think there's a possibility of a Russian exodus of a highly skilled workforce? Oh, yeah. If Putin continues to keep up the rhetoric of self-cleansing, economic stagnation, public trader lists, etc. Yeah, what Nicholas is asking is basically in development or in foreign policy, we call this brain drain. In English, at least, it's called brain drain. And traditionally, it's something that is thought that can happen in developing countries where their best and brightest will go abroad for university, and they'll like so much studying in England or Germany or France, or actually a lot of people from, they showed a Nigerian student studying in Ukraine, actually, and the poor guy got caught in the war there. But they go abroad to study, and they like it so much they don't want to go home because back home is, a bad economy. They can't get good jobs. I even think of Italians I talk to that talk about like that. I love it. Italy's one of my favorite countries on the planet. But Italians who will talk about how they just can't get good work in Italy, and they end up working in the rest of the EU, the rest of the European Union. That's going to be a really interesting question for Russia. We know a lot of journalists have left because, frankly, they're afraid of getting killed at this point, I think. But the younger generation, we also know that younger generation Russians are aware of what's going on. That even though the older generation just has the TV news that's lying to them, the younger people have the internet, so they know what's going on in Ukraine. They know what's going on with the sanctions. They know what their country's doing. And I would not be surprised if they can get out of the country if a lot of them wouldn't try to start immigrating to Europe. The question is, can they immigrate to Europe? And you know what I mean? Each country has a certain number of people they let in. Russia's not part of the EU. So it may not be easy for them to immigrate, but I wouldn't be surprised. If I were in Russia now, if I were a young Russian, I'd be, enough already. Especially now, the country's turned back into a dictatorship again. Why would you want to live through that? Having said that, your family is there, so I get the difficulty of it. Your family's there. It's hard to leave home. Next, Trisha. I don't know what that is. UATV, what is that? Trisha asks about UATV English on YouTube. Is it a good channel? If anybody knows what that is, this is on YouTube we're talking. Jump in on the YouTube comments and answer Trisha's question. Is it some kind of, I don't even know what it is, UATV. Yeah, if somebody could jump in and answer her question, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. And Johan, you've still got, or Johan, you've still got to tell us how to pronounce your name. Maybe you've been putting it in there and I keep missing it. But I'm curious all right, I'm going to write this down so I can Google it afterwards. Johan. I keep wanting to say Johan or Yuan because I'm thinking Swedish, but I don't know. Exactly, folks. We got to keep you two happy. No profanity. Okay, let's see. I think. Yes, I'm up on my questions. Let's go back to the questions on TikTok. Oh, God, I forgot to mention the Kyiv Independent. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, the Kyiv Independent is a wonderful publication, too. They are a Ukrainian publication in English. They link to a lot of good stuff around the web, and then they also publish a lot of their own good stuff. But they'll also link to stories in Russian. Thank you, Debbie. That was sweet of you. They'll link to stories in Russian and give you a summary in English, which is nice. And then the internet being what it is now, you can click over to the Russian, do a translate, and still get a pretty good sense of the story. So yeah, the Kyiv Independent, fabulous. Very important to follow them. Thank you for bringing that up. Belarus. So that's an interesting question. So I think it was Mark who asked, what if, okay, I say Belarus. I've been told that I pronounced the name incorrectly. When I was younger, I was told, I'm going to put this one up so I don't forget. Jogan. Interesting. Okay, thank you. I was told when I was younger that the country was Belarus. And now I'm being told it's Belarus, so I'm having a very hard time calling it Belarus. But nonetheless, Belarus is so you've got Ukraine, okay? You've got Russia up here, kind of north to the east. You've got Belarus north to the west. These are the two countries bordering Ukraine on the top. And Russia, one of the four fronts Russia did invading, Russia came in through Belarus. It came in, so in northwest through Belarus, northeast down to Kharkiv, Ukraine. Southeast through those two territories that Russia claims are independent, that it's trying to make part of Russia, and then through the south through Crimea, that Ukrainian territory that the Russians stole in 2014. Well, the concern or the talk has been whether Belarus is itself going to enter the war. Belarus has let Putin come in with his troops through Belarus, and apparently there's artillery, from what I read, based in Belarus that's shooting into Ukraine. But the question is, will the Belarusians enter the war and send their own troops in? Now, why they might do that is because you've got Belarus here, and then you've got Poland. And here you've got Ukraine and Poland. Now, Ukraine borders 4 NATO countries. The biggest border or the most important border right now is with Poland. And that's where the refugees are leaving, but it's where a lot of the military supplies we assume are coming in as well from the West. Well, what happens if the Belarusians were to invade and come straight down that western Ukraine and cut off Ukraine from Poland? That's the concern there. Now, I don't know whether the Belarusians can pull it off. I don't know whether they've got enough troops. I also don't know, Lukashenko, the dictator, is very unpopular, so it's not clear he could pull it off. But, who knows? I wasn't sure if that was Ukraine. Okay, thank you. Sorry. I'm used to seeing people use they were saying somebody was mentioning UA as an abbreviation, and I didn't know that's the official abbreviation for Ukraine. I'm used to seeing people use UKR in all the stuff I've been reading. So sorry about that. Thanks, Doc, for putting it up there. Oh, and Tricia was saying, TV news station from Ukraine in English on YouTube. I did not know that existed, Tricia is saying. So actually, for all of you guys, TikTok folks too, UATV, it's called UATV. And it's a TV news station from Ukraine in English, and you can find it on YouTube. Huh, that's interesting. I mean, it's worth checking out. Actually, I'm going to write it down because it would be interesting to check out UATV now that the war is going on, as far as seeing what they're reporting on, what's happening. That's very interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, a couple more questions, guys, and then we're going to call it quits on the questions. I'll hang out for a couple of minutes, but as I said, I don't want to go too long tonight because I'm still recovering from that surgery, and I can just tell I only needed a 1-hour nap today. Yesterday was a 3-hour nap, and the day before was a 5-hour nap. So I'm definitely feeling improved, but I still feel like I need some chocolate after this to pick me up. How likely do you think it is that Russia will go after Lviv? Lviv, by the way, is a huge city of Ukraine in the west near Poland. Or do you think they'll just focus on the bridge to Crimea? Well, I mean, in the last few days, interesting question. In the last few days, we've seen the Russians start focusing on Western Ukraine. Initially, they weren't going after Western Ukraine. It was pretty much a safe zone so far, right? So from Lviv in the north all the way down to, I'm trying to remember the town where I mentioned my friend Vlad is in the south, southwest by Slovenia, yes, by Slovenia. It's free of combat. Well, the last few days, we've seen bombing, at least outside of Lviv. I don't remember if they bombed in Lviv yet, but I know they've gotten very close. We also saw that bombing in the further southwest, in that town, like 15 miles from the Polish border, 25 kilometers. And the Russians bombed the military base that it was believed a lot of the foreign fighter volunteers were at, right? So we're seeing increased Russian bombing out there, possibly to say, oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Sorry, I'll just put this one up just to have it in the background. So I mean, I'm not surprised that they've been bombing, because they're trying to sort of psychologically tell the Ukrainians you're not safe anywhere, and they're trying to get rid of some of the foreign troops, which are legitimate military targets, so to speak. But I think they'd be morons if they're going to open up another front. I mean, the military experts were saying it already was kind of crazy that Russia looks like it's preparing to launch a beach invasion of Odessa, which is southwest Ukraine, so just to the west, to the left of Crimea, and that it looks like Russia was going to invade there. They were, at least the last few days, and that would have been a fifth front, a fifth area that they'd be fighting in, which is crazy. You don't do that when you're basically, well, if you don't want to say losing a war, but when you're at a stalemate, you don't want to have another area that you've got to fight, and now you've got to put more resources over there. So, let's see if they decide to take the Belarusians and go in there to try to cut off the West so that Polish supplies, NATO supplies, can't come into Ukraine by land. And if maybe the Russians use a few more rockets just to freak people out and make the Ukrainians feel like nobody's safe anywhere. Now, Jessica just posted that CNN says Russia just bombed Mariupol, hundreds of thousands trapped. Well, that the only thing is I'd have to see the news, because that's what they've been doing for 2 weeks now. Yeah, they've been bombing that poor place in Mariupol, and hundreds of thousands of people are still in that poor city. No water, no food, no electricity, no heat. It's just, it is a war crime. And I don't know how much longer we can sit and watch it happen without doing something more than just doing the sanctions. But Lori again, hello. If supplies are coming in from Poland, the guess is they're not saying where they're coming in from, because, of course, smartly they're not telling us, so the Russians don't know where to bomb them. If supplies are coming in from Poland and it got bombed, attacked by Russian missiles or Belarusian troops, would NATO act then? Well, here's the problem. It depends. I mean, here's where my being a lawyer is going to kick in. 1 second, little lip gloss. My lips are getting dry. It depends. A, where does it get bombed? In Poland or in Ukraine? Let's say it's a truck carrying weapons. Does it get bombed in Poland? That's an act of war against Poland. Does it get bombed in Ukraine? It depends. Is it a Polish truck with Polish people on it? Or is it a Ukrainian truck with Ukrainian people on it? I mean, or even better, even if it's a Polish truck, if it's all Ukrainians on the truck, then it's not an act of war against Poland. Even if they're Polish weapons. Once they cross the border, they're a legitimate military target. But if there's Polish people on that truck, then you've got an act of war against Poland, and then it depends what Poland wants to do. My suspicion would be, since NATO at least has been so careful about not wanting to provoke direct war with Russia, I don't know what they're doing, but my suspicion is you would have some Ukrainians come across the border into Poland. You would do the exchange, and those Ukrainians, however they do it, dark of night or whatever, drive the weapons across. That's my guess. I have no idea. But yeah, it would be an act of war if that's the risk of Putin upping his game. What if Putin decides, I'm going to bomb the weapons when they're still in Poland or Romania or Hungary or Slovenia, whichever border they're coming across? He sees the shipment across the border and bombs it in one of those countries. Thank you. Then that is absolutely an act of war. And then it just depends on what NATO decides it wants to do. Jogan, hopefully I'm closer this time. What do you think would happen if NATO does peacekeeping in Ukraine? Well, that's an interesting question. So Jogan says, what would happen if NATO does peacekeeping? I mean, the problem now becomes peacekeeping where, you can't really put peacekeepers down in the middle of war. So like Mariupol, what do? Right? I mean, the Russians are bombing it. What people were saying was that maybe we could have peacekeepers. I think this wouldn't have been a bad idea. Peacekeepers. Well, first of all, we should have had peacekeepers before the war started. Before the war started, Putin said he wasn't going to invade. I would have said, great, you're not invading? No problem. We're moving in peacekeepers because you said you're not invading. So there's no problem. And I would have put NATO. I would have, first of all, tried to get UN peacekeepers, would have been my first bet. But then I would have gotten NATO peacekeepers and spread them all over Ukraine and said, no problem, Putin, because you said you're not invading. And that way, if Putin invades, he has to kill NATO troops and it's war. Now, the problem is NATO didn't want war with Putin, so we didn't want our peacekeepers there because we don't want to go to war with him because we think it's going to be World War III. So that's the first problem. The second issue now becomes Western Ukraine, which was just, I will never remember your guy's name, so I apologize. But the question the woman just asked about Western Ukraine, will he bomb Lviv? Will he bomb Western Ukraine? Well, since not too much is happening in Western Ukraine, you could potentially put NATO or UN peacekeepers in Western Ukraine. And the same thing. You say they're set up there, nobody invade, nobody bomb. This area is free, leave it alone. And that would be very interesting. But that would take either the UN having the backbone or NATO having the backbone to do it, because NATO currently doesn't want to do anything that risks direct military confrontation with Russia, and putting peacekeepers there risks direct military confrontation with Russia if Russia wants to call our bluff. Not call our bluff, but fire at us anyway. And unfortunately, I think our leaders are, I don't want to say too afraid of war, because that's almost too flippant of a way of putting it, but I think Putin has scared us a little too much. And I think we've let that be known publicly, and I'm not very happy about that. So did I miss anybody? All right, guys, I'm going to stop with the questions. It's 8:20. All right. I will hang out maybe 5-10 minutes max. No more war questions. I've already gone 20 minutes over, 17 minutes over, and I'm exhausted. But thank you all. Please do follow me. Like me. Please like me. No, like my videos and all of that. I will, like I said, we'll hang out and talk a few minutes here anyway. I don't mind doing that. But I don't want to do any more. My dog is a Yorkie Bichon, called a Yorkie Sean, but I refuse to use the name because it's goofy. So she's a Yorkie Bichon. She's sleeping somewhere. I don't know where she's sleeping right now, but she's sleeping somewhere. I think also she's learned, I love that hat. I think Sasha has learned that this time of night is the time of night that I usually grab her, pick her up, and put her on the screen. And she hates being picked up. Like yesterday, not yesterday, Thursday night, I guess, was the last time we did this. Thursday night, I heard her moving, so I went and got her. I even got a dog treat in my hand, and she's in her bed and looks up at me and won't get up for the dog treat because she knew I was picking her up to show her to you guys. I mean, that's how bad it was. So she may be, she's a little too smart. She may be avoiding us every night at this hour. So, as I said, if you guys want to message me about moderating, we have a good number of moderators on YouTube. I think a number of you already found out. Some of you regulars whose names I recognized, I made you moderators. I'm going to go back and even a few more that I recognize, just make you moderators. That way, if you happen to be there someday and you see people doing crazy stuff, you can block them. On YouTube. I'm tired, guys. Thank you for the hat, though. On TikTok, as I said, if you guys want to moderate, send me a message. You can always email me, my last name at Gmail, or I guess that's, you probably can't message me on TikTok. Let me know your email address, like I said. Let me know your phone number, because I'd like to be able to talk to you, because we did have, thank you, we did have some pro-Russian person who I accidentally moderated, and he was blocking people. So that was not a very good thing. So you may have noticed if you were, I could get you know what? I can't get a picture of Sasha right now because I don't have my, 1 second. Maybe I can. Hold on. Let me see here. I was going to say my phone is currently being occupied by TikTok, so I can't do that. But I can look and see if I've got a Sasha picture on my iPad. Oops, one moment here. Let me see. Hopefully I can get in. Let me see. 1 second. Photos. I want to find a good one, but when it comes down to it, any of them are glorious of my little Sasha. The best of, I literally have a box that's called the best of Sasha. I love my dog. What can I say? Oh my God, I've got so many funny pictures. I've got so many like funny videos of her. Where's this? Here, I'll show you this one really quick. This is Sasha in bed. She does this thing every morning where she wakes up and then she digs her head into the bed. I have to rub her head. Then she stops. I rub her head again. She rolls and then stops and looks at me. I rub her head again. See how she stops? That means I'm supposed to rub her head again. It's like this game she taught me that we do when she wakes up in the morning. It's the funniest damn thing. But sorry, I will show you one other picture of actually just a good picture of Sasha. Let me find a modern day, oh, this is a nice one of Sasha actually. Yeah, hold on. There we go. That would be Sasha today. Sasha without a haircut. Very shaggy Sasha. So as I said, half Yorkshire Terrier, half Bichon Frise. So, and depending on what dog you've had, you will either recognize the Yorkie or you'll recognize the Bichon, which is funny. So, what else, guys? Oh, like I said, we can talk a few more minutes, and then, like I said, maybe 25 after I'll call it quits, just because, like I said, I don't want to. I just am surprised. Like I said, it was a very minor little surgery. It wasn't like the really bad. Is it called seroplasty or something they call it? It wasn't that bad stuff they do. It wasn't the cartilage. It was just this more minor opening things up. And it just knocked me out. I mean, I've been exhausted the last 3 days. And a little dizzy, but they actually, they checked in today to see how I was doing. And they said it may be because they still have me on antibiotics and steroids. The steroids might be what's knocking me out. And I'm wondering if maybe it is because even now I'm just really tired and it's crazy. But anyway. It's just my last name, Stella. My email is my last name @gmail.com. What else, guys? So Sasha, oh my God, Sasha's 12 years old. So I got her when she was 10 weeks old. So she's 12 now. Knock on wood, she's still in good shape. You know, the little dogs can live a long time. They get older, but of course they can still get anything. You know what I mean? They can catch anything. So you never know. But, I was just reading here. What was Tara saying? I know we were talking about 10 years ago and wipe me out. Yeah, for like 3 days, Tara's saying the same thing. She had a nose procedure done. I guess like you don't think of it as surgery, especially this. Like I said, I don't even want to go because it's gross, but they went in and made more space. But the one, I don't want to gross people out because I was telling somebody about this and my neighbor was like, hey, but they break your nose, but just little mini breaks in your nose. Which sounds really bad, but they go in and just literally micro breaks to expand it just slightly. But obviously, there's no bruising. It's not like the nose is any different. But I suspect that it still wipes you out. Physically, you're trying to come back from it. Tara, that is not my email. That is not my last name. That is, people do that all the time. You mixed the V and the R. So my family in Greece, that is a long story because we actually have a very good family tree going back to the 1700s, which for Greece is pretty good because unlike the Anglo countries, it's harder to find the records in Greece. You know, they were kept in the churches, and with the Turkish occupation and everything, not as good of records. But we are from, in principle, we're all from the Peloponnesian Peninsula. Mom's family further south, and then a little bit north, dad's family also south. So mom and dad's parents, 3 of them are all from, the irony is 3 of them are from villages like 5 minutes away from each other, which is wild because my grandma and grandpa met there, but my mom and dad met here in the States. Mom was born in Greece. But then when you go back really far, we're from a region in northern Greece near Albania, which is its own other fascinating history of Greece. And that's where we lose the family tree, about the 1700s in south of Albania. And I want to go up there and meet. There's a whole Albanian Greek community, for example, in southern Albania. I want to go up there at some point. Bye, Dharma. I want to go up there and meet people and ask them about my relatives, because we've got a relative who was pretty famous. I would say like a B-list celebrity in the Revolutionary War in Greece. And I'm just dying to go and find out more about the relatives up there. My sister's dog is doing well, Dharma asks. My sister Kathy, her poor 17-and-a-half-year-old Yorkie poo had to be put down this week. She had dementia. I mean, it was really like in a way it was good because it was out of the blue and it was just like, boom, she didn't know where she was anymore. She had a hard time eating. So at least it was obvious it was time, but just devastating after 17 and a half years. And my sister, I think to her credit, decided to get another dog immediately. And she got another Yorkie poo, because Carmela was a Yorkie poo, called Layla, who was the runt of her litter, only 1.5 pounds at 10 weeks. So she's hoping Layla makes it to 5 pounds. So she's not too small, but she's doing really well. She's a little bit scared. Because I had shown a video to you guys the other day of it. And what basically was happening was my sister was simply videoing the dog, and the dog was barking at the camera, at the phone, but she was telling me that the dog was also shaking. And she said, like, the blender went off, the dog was shaking. The camera, she saw the dog was shaking. So a little bit worried about trying to, buck the dog's courage up a little so that so that the poor thing doesn't sort of develop phobias. It's one thing to be afraid, but like Sasha would be afraid of things as a puppy, but she would bark. Like, I've got a wonderful video of her with a blueberry. She was a little freaked out by a blueberry. And it's a great video. It's actually, if you look back on my YouTubes, look way back on my YouTubes, and you're going to find a whole bunch of Sasha puppy videos from 10 years ago. If you want, they're hilarious. But the one with Sasha versus the blueberry, and she's like barking at it, jumping back and barking at it. That's what Sasha would do. You could tell she was scared, but she would, I pulled out a big pot, like for making pasta in, or almost like a lobster pot. And Sasha I didn't realize she'd never seen pots before, because I don't pull my pots out that much, not a big pot. And she's barking at it. But again, when she gets scared, she steps away and barks and kind of gets close and barks. Kathy's dog, my sister's dog, would literally start shaking. So anyway, she was going to the vet last week anyway for a check-in, just their first big vet visit. And I told her maybe to ask the vet for advice into Google just to make sure the poor thing doesn't develop kind of phobias and stuff. Oh my God, were you saying 185 pounds, I think somebody said, was their dog? Oh yeah. Your largest dog weighs 186 pounds, Tara. Oh my God. I can only imagine, the size of picking up after that dog and the amount of food you'd eat. Oh my God. Anything else chatty? Yeah, dog being afraid of car rides. Sasha doesn't mind car rides. The only thing is it's funny because I don't have a car here in DC, so we don't do many car rides. But what Sasha gets is either a car ride means we're going to the airport, which is fun. She likes meeting people at the airport. She hates the plane, and I carry her on. I pay and carry her on, which is better at least. But she still hates being under the seat, but she likes meeting people. Or as part of the trip, it means I'm going to visit my mom, and she loves visiting my mom's house, my mom's dog, my mom, my relatives. So or we're going to the vet. So Sasha's got this real love-hate thing with cars. She's not afraid of cars in terms of motion, but she's got a weird thing as to whether she thinks we're going to the airport, we're going to the vet, or we're visiting my mom. So it's kind of it's a funny thing. All right, guys, we're at 8:28. I'm going to sign off. I would normally go longer, even though this is longer than I keep wanting to go, but I want to take it easy tonight. Thank you for joining us again. I'm glad that we're back. I'm glad we're able to keep it back. I still can't schedule these things, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. And hopefully whatever went wrong has been solved, at least in terms of these things getting shut off. So that's great. And I will, and exactly. The video is archived on YouTube, which is nice at least. So if you go to my YouTube account, John Aravosis DC, one word. Actually, I should just tell the TikTok people, you can just go to my profile, and in the profile, click the link, and you'll see somewhere in there a link to my YouTube. So just go there, and you can see all the old videos. Also in that link, which is the link on the screen here, remember, you can give to the Ukrainian charity, give to the Ukrainian military. You can give more money to my friend Vlad in Ukraine, who's distributing it now to other needy families in the area, other refugees. And I'm checking with him every day, so feel free to keep doing that because Vlad is just spreading the love. And you can even give to me if you want. Although at this point, pretty much everything coming into Venmo and Cash App, I'm assuming is for Vlad. So if you really want to give me a donation via Venmo or Cash App, you really need to write in there that it's for me because I've been assuming everything's for Vlad and just sending it to him the last few days. So anyway, guys, all right, I'm going to sign off because I'm getting tired. I need my chocolate ice cream. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad to be back. And this is working okay, I think, doing the two of you. I've got literally my TikTok here right next to my screen. And this has been pretty good for seeing the screen. But thank you, moderators, for helping. You've made life so much easier. And I promise you, TikTok guys, I will try to find you more moderators. It's just a little harder. So, but we will. Okay, guys. All right, I'm ending the broadcast on YouTube.